Channel checks and your recent deal wins indicate that telecom vertical is set for a very strong revival. Could we expect quarterly run rate for telecom vertical to be above $500 million for 3 quarters, that Q2, Q3 as well as Q4?
I think if, as you know, communications vertical or the telecom vertical is our largest vertical, and clearly while there has been kind of a slow progress in that vertical for the last several quarters, I think the second quarter of this year we have already seen deal wins of 300 million plus just in the communications vertical. So from our perspective, it is the beginning of we are hoping a trend where there will be growth sequentially in the communications vertical across multiple quarters. In fact, as I see it, I mean, looking at the profile of how the demand is coming through, as well as the various geographies where we are winning some of these deals, I think we are very hopeful that this is a reversal of the trend of the slowdown. What was happening in the vertical was really about a reduction in discretionary spend and a longer decision making cycle, and these deal wins are showing that at least from that perspective things are looking much better for the communications vertical going into Q2 as well as going forward for the next 2 or 3 quarters. That's the visibility we have.
Okay, so fair to say that capex in global telecom industry, especially US, is picking up, and will deal wins then be better in FY19?
So, I really don't want to give any numbers which will be not something we have shared in the past, but as I see just some qualitatively, if I look at the funnel 12 months before and 12 months later today, I think clearly there has been a significant improvement in the funnel. We clearly have to go and convert those deals and translate them into wins and revenue over the next few quarters, and that's something we are all focused on. And from our perspective, the important thing is that the whole system transformation and IT transformation which was missing for the last several quarters or maybe years, that's starting to come back a bit in the vertical, and hopefully that's a trend which will continue and we'll capitalize on it. Unfortunately, we don't share any particular numbers on deal wins in the future, etc., but suffice it to say that from our perspective things are turning for the better, and we hope to capitalize on that market opportunity.
How big is the 5G related opportunity? Could this be a big contributor to growth in the next fiscal?
Yeah, if I look at the communications vertical itself, I think every few years network technology changes, which causes a upswing in spending. So the first correlation of network upgrade cycles is really about a capex cycle which opens up in the industry, and we have typically benefited from that generically. The second thing is, if I look at specifically the 5G opportunity, clearly compared to the last cycle of network upgrades, we have a substantial network services portfolio which we have built over a period of time, and clearly from our perspective we can participate in that upswing earlier. The second thing is that as you think about 5G, and enough has been said about it in terms of what 5G really means, it is almost an unbundling of the network into distinct components, and that throws up very interesting possibilities of work which can be done by several players across the globe in partnerships with the leading OEMs, as well as there are several independent players emerging. So that's the second opportunity, and the third opportunity is, of course, the 5G network will rely on solutions, whether it is autonomous car or connected car or any of the IoT based solutions.
After no growth in telecom over the past 3 years, should we expect mid single digit growth this year onwards?
So I think mid single digit is something which we will probably achieve in the next year. This year, if I look at it, I think there are two impacts. So there's a cross currency impact, because a lot of our telecom revenue is non-dollar also. So having said that, I do believe even for FY19 there will be growth. So if I look at the communications vertical, last 2 years we have been flattish to a slight decline, and this year there will be growth, and next year we believe that we will target mid-single digit kind of growth. That's the current estimation, but I think clearly this is an evolving thing where as and when we convert more deals, I think we'll give an update on how we think about growth in the communications vertical.
Yeah. Your year-to-date deal wins announced for that $435 million for communication vertical alone. Can you give us a color on the deal pipeline that you may be sitting at?
So we have never disclosed our pipeline because a lot of these large deals are binary in nature. So either you win them, and which means a large increment to revenue, and if you don't win them, I mean there is no revenue. So I don't want to quote a number and on pipeline, but as I said, I think the broader statement to me is that if I look at the communications vertical, I do believe that the trend of degrowth is something which will be something of the past, and I think will start to grow in the future, and enterprise continues to be on a steady growth path. So I think that's the way I look at it, and unfortunately I can't dive deeper into the numbers, and that's something which we have never disclosed in terms of deal pipeline and conversion rates.
No, and we understand that, we appreciate it. Sharp depreciation in the rupee, how will it impact financials in the near to the longer term? Is the volatility getting difficult to manage?
So, I think the whole rupee depreciation, there are three elements. So the first element is, of course, as the rupee depreciates, and the industry and including us will see some margin improvements come through. I have said before that every percentage point of depreciation of the rupee actually adds about 15 to 20 basis points to our EBITDA margin. So that's something which we would expect to flow through. In fact, in Q1 we did see about 70 basis points of margin improvement due to the rupee, and that's something which we expect will continue into Q2 and Q3. I think the second question which you raised is an interesting one in terms of the long-term dynamics. So as we have looked at the long term, I think clearly there are two trends. So on existing deals, I think clearly there is a large scope to retain some of the margin improvements, but on new deals, as the pricing models change and as the new rupee rate kind of becomes the new baseline, I think some of those gains will be passed back to the customers on newer deals. On the existing deals, I think as of now, I think there is there is no pressure we are seeing coming through from any of our customers in terms of renegotiations or so on and so forth. Also, renegotiation is a constant factor in our industry, and that's been a constant thing which has been happening for the last 3 years.